So Wuthering Waves just dropped and I was very excited for this game. The open world looks nice and I saw some clips where people were playing the beta and they were running around doing parkour and it was so sick, and that combat system just looks juicy. But there was one problem. My PC isn't really up to date. Like, my CPU is basically an Intel Xeon R, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't even know what an Intel Xeon is. But I will say, because of my GPU, which is a 1050 Ti, it can still run The Witcher 3, Genshin Impact, and even Persona 3 Reload with the lowest settings just fine. So it should be okay, right? So on May 22, I downloaded the game, launched it, and tried Wuthering Waves. What's happening here? It's just this load screen. Alright, this is standard if you have a low-end PC. The loading screens just take forever. So I'm just gonna come back after everything's done.
A few minutes later.
Okay, now we're back. What is this? America recommended? I'm in Asia, so let me try. I see. I'm a day early. Well, see you tomorrow.
The next day.
Okay, and we're back, and oh yeah, I forgot about this.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Alright, time to name my character. What's invalid about that? Okay, let me try again. Okay. Yeah, I just don't get it. It keeps saying invalid characters. Alright, I guess J it is then. Now, time to play the... God damn it, another load screen. Finally. After all that waiting, I can finally see the game. And this looks pretty. Okay, that actually looks sick. That's actually a really cool way to start everything. How does the game actually start? Do we start by falling? I guess not. Wait a minute. This looks familiar. Alright, time to finally play the game. Something's not right? Okay, maybe the lagging will set in as I play the game progressively. So for now, let me run in circles until the dialogue finishes. Yeah, no, I feel like these lag spikes are gonna be perpetual throughout the game. Even the latency tag is going up every single bit of lag spike. So yeah, let me lower the settings a bit. Maybe that's actually gonna fix something. Yep, nope. This is gonna be a rough ride, isn't it? Okay, so like I've said before, this PC is capable of running Genshin Impact really well. Something that I think is of a similar scale to this game, especially in 1.0. The Witcher 3, Persona 3 Reload, Rust, and even poorly optimized games like 7 Days to Die and The Witcher 2 ran pretty well. So I was really surprised when I encountered this issue with a gacha game that was meant to be also run on mobile. Albeit all of these games that I previously said had the lowest settings that I could have put in them, it still run way better than Wuthering Waves at the lowest setting. But the thing is, I have encountered worse before. I've had worse laptops in the past that had 30-minute load times for MMOs like Flife and 10 FPS modded Minecraft playthroughs. So I'm pretty confident with my tolerance to this, and this is not really my first rodeo with this kind of thing. But without any further ado, let's go on with this adventure, even though it's freaking laggy. After waking up, realizing you have amnesia, and being led by these two characters, you encounter some monsters and begin fighting. At first, it was just a pretty standard fighting system, but once you get another party member, it changes everything. This is probably when I felt like, even though the game was very laggy, I can probably push through. Because this tagging mechanic is so smooth and so cool that it hypes me up every time I switch characters. It always feels so powerful when you do something right in this game. Whether it be dodging, switching at the right time and moment, or even parrying. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Before you get to fight this big dude over here, you get this vision of this dragon dude and get a lore drop from Yang Yang.
The sentinel in Jinzhou in the shape of a long.
You also get some banter amongst the characters, and this happens.
Done. Done. Its design and system version are different from...
Yeah, I noticed that this happens a lot during the game, and I just had to get used to it. But the more that I realized, or the more that I played this game, the more that I realized that there are just a lot of dialogue problems. Like, sometimes they would repeat things. If you have autoplay on, they would sometimes cut their sentences off, which is really weird.
You have a kind...
It's all thanks. Mr. Zhang Ye's grandson is very likely in the desert rock. Thanks to your help.
And I didn't get to record this part, but there was once wherein like one of the characters were speaking and I didn't click and their dialogue just straight up cut. At the very least, I could have, I could still read what they were going to say, but their actual voice line just cut off. So yeah, I really hope they would fix this in the future because this is a pretty bad problem to have, I would say. Speaking of dialogue issues, I will say that throughout my runs, Yang Yang's delivery of some lines takes me out of the experience. Like whenever she says certain character names or places or words in certain situations, it feels like she stops the sentence flow just to say the correct pronunciation of the word.
The sentinel in Jinzhou in the shape of a long, one capital and 6 cities in Huanglong, with each city having its own sentinel.
I think this is probably why Genshin sometimes doesn't follow the correct pronunciation of words and opts to go for how you would usually hear it in a conversation. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's just line negligence or whatever you would call what happened with the word leeway and how people pronounce it like so many ways during the beginning of the game. I just think that oftentimes when people are trying to pronounce it in the correct way, people tend to not sound like they're having a conversation. And the thing is, this also happens in real life. If you wanted to say, I want a hamburger in Tagalog, you wouldn't say, gusto ko ng hamburger. If you say it like this in a conversation, your friends might point it out and have a laugh because it's not really how you would usually say it in Tagalog. Usually, you would probably say it as gusto ko ng hamburger. Because that's just how conversations work. We often opt for what sounds right and how it feels in a conversation than just thinking how would you pronounce it correctly and sound very off when you're talking to someone casually. So it might not be the correct pronunciation, but it sounds a lot better. But all of this rambling about me and pronunciations is just really a nitpick of mine, and most people will probably not notice this because for some reason I notice it a bit more, which takes me out of the experience at times. It reminds me of Chi in Persona 4 Golden. The direction of her voice was very weird to me when I first played the game, and it took me a lot of time just to get used to it. Now, I will say this though. I don't really mind correct pronunciations when you're talking to someone or if you're doing some type of conversation in these types of games, as long as it sounds more organic and it doesn't sound forced, wherein it sounds like you're stopping a sentence or the flow of a sentence just to pronounce it correctly and then continue as if nothing happened. Anyway, back to the game itself. After you unlock the first waypoint of the game, you try to exit the cave and catch a glimpse at the wide shot of the open world. Except something seems to be wrong with mine because it was just silent and awkwardly showing me the whole scene without any music or anyone talking over it. So I feel like something was wrong here.
Once you're out of the gorge, there's only a short walk to reach Jinzhou. Jinzhou is the safest place around here. The resonance nexus provides coverage for the whole city. Besides, we've got a protective barrier and strong fortifications.
After that scene, which I feel like it probably had some music, it just didn't play, weird things start happening around us. Apparently, a tacit field appeared out of nowhere, and I'm not gonna lie, these words kinda meant nothing to me at this moment. But that would soon change after another lore dump. This is also the part wherein I kind of also accepted that I should get used to awkward dialogue moments.
True. Who could have set the bait then? Oh, I see. The one who seems simple-minded in the group is actually the mastermind with schemes. That's another popular trope. No, wait. I'm not the mastermind.
We see another character down the cliff and we are given the glider module. Glider module. We then meet Baizhi and experience another line being cut.
I've been keeping an eye on his condition through the stream.
But you know what? Let's go back to the good part. Like, this was actually a really cool scene. And this fight cemented that even with my current problems with the game, this combat system will keep me playing it. Like, this was such a sick fight. And I couldn't wait to play with another character because of... I just fell in love with this combat system. Like, this actively made me excited for the game, even though it was super laggy, there's a lot of dialogue problems, and I had like nitpicks with even how the pronunciations were being used, and it was very weird, but I think that it was still worth just to experience this fight alone. And the thing is, after this fight, instead of, you know, continuing and playing with the game, we get another lore dump, and I think it's time to address these lore dumps. I think that exposition is a very important part of storytelling, so info dumps and lore dumps will be commonplace, and they are very important to build up scenes and have everything make sense. But I feel like that there's a better time for that. This is like the first 30 minutes of the game, and these concepts and intricacies and lore do not interest me at all at the very beginning sections of any game, really. Like, I would have liked it if the game showed me a lot more stuff before this, instead of having all of these information just dumped into me immediately after just waking up. Like, every single time they try to dump a lot of exposition onto me at this point, or like a lot of lore things, instead of focusing on the lore and being interested in said lore, I am just thinking of what I could do next after this lore dump. What could I do next? Could I finally explore? Can I finally just open some chests, fight some monsters, and do with the mechanic that actually made me fell in love with the game? I really feel like this is just a very bad way of just having an info dump thrown at us at the very beginning of the game. In short, let me frickin' play the game first. Make me invested before dumping all this lore onto me. That way, maybe the exposition could be fun, because I actually really like dialogue moments. It's just the fact that in this moment, I just do not care at all. A game that handles info dumps and when to do it, when the right time it is to do it, and how long it has to be in specific moments of the game really well is Skyrim. At the very beginning of the game, you are told very few things with very little detail, but very important things that will be important later on. In the first 5 minutes of the game, you literally know why you're in this carriage, who you are with, that there is a rebellion happening in Skyrim that's led by Ulfric Stormcloak against the Imperials, and that the Thamor, whatever that is, had something to do with it. All of this was done in 5 minutes. This wasn't even really an info dump, but more of a way to give you seeds of information that will grow later on as you play the game. We do get huge lore dumps later on, especially when it comes to delving with the blades and all of these things. But at this point, you're already hours into the game. You're already invested. You already love this world. You like these characters. You have a lot of intrinsic motivation to find out more about this world organically. Now imagine if in this carriage ride, they told you who the Stormcloaks and Imperials are, why they are having an internal conflict right now, and what are the history behind the Nords and the Elves, and why are the Thalmor embassy here, and everything in between for 30 minutes as the game just begun. That is what Wuthering Waves does. And the thing is, I just think that these info dumps are too bland, too long, with not much character. Heck, Chixia is literally carrying when it comes to having character in any of these conversations. I just think that Yang and Baizhi were not really that interesting when it comes to just having these banters. But the thing is, I don't think Chixia was enough to carry these dialogue conversations. But you know, the funny thing is, Wuthering Waves does have, does have scenes that know how to present really interesting info dumps in a really fun manner. It's just that they save that for 4 hours after the game. But I'll talk more about that later. Anyway, after 10 more minutes of info dumps, we will find out that the magistrate of this land knows something about us and probably is inviting us. We're not sure if we're the ones who are actually getting this invitation, but we're just assuming because, we just suddenly woke up, we have no memories, and we feel like we have this mysterious power within us. So to find out more about us and everything that's been happening so far, we go and travel to Jinzhou. Along the way, we discover the use of echoes, which is like Pokemon mechanics that also alter your abilities. The thing with the Pokemon mechanic is you kill enemies and you somehow gain some of their abilities. It's either to shapeshift as them and use their abilities, or to summon them for a brief moment in time in battle. This mechanic seems really cool, but I'm still very early on in the game and I don't really have much to say about it yet. I'm currently an hour into this game at this moment, and the stuttering still is there, and it's safe to say that it's gonna be like this throughout the whole entire game, but I already expected this after, earlier. So after a bit of exploring, we finally get into the city. Baizhi reports back to the academy. Yang goes to the city hall to book an appointment for us to meet the magistrate, and Chixia is left to give us a tour around the city. Yeah, no, this is definitely the best type of touring, I must say. Anyway, after this, we head to the beacon that unlocks the whole area for us in the map. But before going along and going further into the touring, Yang calls us to go to the city hall. We enter the city hall to meet the magistrate, but she's not here. Instead, we are given these tokens that we have to investigate to get more information about what we want to know, which is who the heck are we and what's currently happening within this world. And the tokens are a mangosteen, this fruit that you guys probably don't know, is very popular in Southeast Asia, a piece of candy, a weird sundial compass thing, and a leaf. And this is where the story begins, really. A story that I am still not invested in after this long of playing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the thought of investigating these tokens felt like a chore. Or I guess it'll probably feel like a chore. Because at this point, I wasn't really interested. I kind of just wanted to explore the open world a bit more. But the thing is, I feel like the world still isn't fully explorable at the moment. Because I haven't fully done the story yet. Heck, I can't even do wishes yet. By wishes, I mean the gacha mechanic yet. So I think I should do the story a bit more before delving into anything that is actually fun in this game. So I continue on to investigate these tokens, go to the academy, and at this point I just felt like the main quest was feeling more like a very boring side quest. Lots of talking to this guy, to that guy. Later on, we get to help this person, assist us, says the medic, and all of these things. Help a monk, fight someone. And I just felt like this main quest was just a series of checkpoints for us to like do without it being fun. It felt like a lot of the fetch quests in old MMORPGs. When you played and you take a quest and just kill these 5 monsters, it felt a lot like that, but with more dialogue. And the sad thing is, as I was doing this main quest, I had a lot of fun exploring the world. Like, doing these dungeons is like really freaking fun. Like, this dungeon right here, which is the race dungeon, caught me very off guard. I didn't know or didn't feel like this was something that I was gonna do in the game, and it was very refreshing. It might have not felt the best when it comes to the controls, but it was still pretty cool. And I was exploring a lot in this game because the climbing, how you climb walls here and how you do parkour is so cool. It feels so fun just exploring and just running up walls. It feels, I can't explain it, but it just feels nice. And that's why it baffles me so much that this story is so bland in comparison. It reminds me a lot of Genshin's first arc that was, you know, pretty bland when it comes to the story department as well. But at the very least, that arc never felt like I was doing a side quest. And it just felt like I was doing an Archon quest. It also made me appreciate the character of Paimon. Of all people, I appreciated Paimon and Venti and how their banters actually made the game a lot more fun.
And you! Did you just borrow the Holy Lyre to play music for drunkards to hear? What do you mean?
And I think the worst part of this whole quest was usually in these types of gacha games, the way that they do the story I think how they do the story is they think of set pieces and they just think of how to connect these set pieces together. And in this case, the set piece of this whole entire quest, the Mangosteen quest, is literally the fight of the general against all these monsters and this animation. And I will say the trial for this character is so fun. It's so sick controlling this character. I tried pulling for him, but I did fail. Maybe I can try later on. But here's the problem. The very hype scene, the very cool scene, the cinematic that was supposed to top this whole quest off to make you feel good, at least feel good at the very end, was ruined for me because the audio and the visuals were desynced. Like, look at this.
General! Follow the Qinglong to war!
This gave me such a stained experience. It just didn't make me feel like I wanted to play the game more, which is so sad because the combat system is so much fun and exploring the world was so fun. If this was the direction of Wuthering Waves' main questline, then I'd say it's looking pretty grim. I'd say that I'm probably just gonna keep exploring the world and just not listen to the dialogue at all. Just skip dialogue entirely. That's what I'm already thinking of because of how annoyed I was with this questline. That was until this quest started.
Without taking anything from you. I once believed that too.
Because this next questline was actually really interesting and I think was executed pretty well. The quest starts after we find the meaning of the Mangosteen token, which is more of an interpretation of what the token really is, and we don't really get a full answer really. Anyway, we proceed towards finding out what the leaf token actually means. Now, Baizhi, before we went on this whole entire journey, said that the leaf actually had coordinates that pointed to a small village. And once you go to that village, something terrible seems to have happened here. But before delving into more of what happened in this village, you first have to defeat these monsters. And, I used my Electro D-Look just to, destroy these monsters. After that, you see this ball-like creature, this ball TD looking thing, and it started speaking to us. Yang Yang said that, it's kind of weird that this thing is talking to us. Usually TDs would immediately attack human beings. So you go on and talk to the ball creature even some more. And for some reason, it's chirping in the dialogue box, even though it's groaning in dialogue. I don't know what's happening there. Probably a translation issue. But anyway, as you talk to this TD, it feels like this monster actually ate humans. And all of the words that it's saying are just repeats of what the people he ate actually said before they passed away.
Help! Brother! Brother!
When we look around the village some more, it feels like there's a ritual that occurred here. But not long after that, a man draped in red and white enters the scene, sealing or teleporting Yang Yang away from us, and then starts playing with cards. We then find out that he is Scar, a cruel and twisted maniac.
If you need to hear it from me, then yes, I am Scar. Cruel and twisted maniac.
At first, he was pretty boring to me, I'm not gonna lie. I felt like he was exuding generic villain energy. But that quickly changes after a couple of back and forths. After conversing with him, we don't really know if he's really good or bad, because what he's saying seems good to us, but at the same time, he looks pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, he's probably a villain. We don't really know his motives, we don't really know what he really wants with us, and he doesn't really seem that evil yet. And the thing is, he also sows a lot of distrust to the people we've met so far. He tells us that everybody knows how valuable we are, that they probably have their own ulterior motives and all of these things. That because we have amnesia, we probably don't know the bigger picture.
Before you knew anything about this world, you were already the center of conflict. You are the unknown variable we've been waiting for. Forces have been fighting for possession over you. From the moment you opened your eyes, everyone you've met, including that girl you care so much about, they all knew how valuable you are.
And then after all that back and forth, he then tells us to solve the mystery of this village on our own, or else, we can fight him, but I didn't pick this option. I probably should have, just to see what would happen. And I would say that this is what I meant earlier by saying that there's probably really fun ways to do exposition and a lot of information dumps. Because at this point, the game actually expects you to, read notes, to read these paragraphs and things. And usually, I would be disincentivized if a game first did this to me. But the thing is, at this point, it really did make me invested. There's a lot of interesting things happening at the same time. I actually had questions myself. I wanted to solve this mystery. I had intrinsic motivation to just solve this mystery itself. Not only that, a lot of things are presented really interestingly here. As you read these notes, they show illustrations that are really cool. It actually looks really fun. It just motivates me to be more interested in the story. And I feel like, where was this earlier? Why was a quest like this that was done really well 4 hours after I first started the game? What have I been doing for the first 4 hours? Like, it just didn't make any sense to me that, they had something this interesting put up after hours of gameplay. I just didn't understand. But yeah, anyway, after solving the whole mystery, he activates the main expansion, puts us here. We fight some goons until we finally fight Scar, and yeah, no, this quest was really fun. I actually had a lot of fun with this quest, and I wish that this game had more quests like this. When it's more dynamic, it's just not two characters talking. It's not just one character giving us a lot of dumps without us having any input or having any thought into what they're saying. Because compared to earlier when we were having info dumps with Yang Yang, she was just telling us information about the world and all of these things. But here, every single thing that Scar says that gives me questions that I want answers to. So yeah, I haven't given up on the quests of Wuthering Waves. But I would have played a lot more, but I decided to call it here because the lag was becoming more unbearable by the minute. I tried killing one of the world bosses, but because it lagged so much, I just died and just gave up for now. Like earlier, it was just stuttering, but now it's just freezing up from time to time. And by the time that it unfreezes, I was already dead. So what's my overall experience? I would say that this game is a game that I would like to keep playing. But at some point, when the lag spikes became more noticeable and unbearable, I just became more unmotivated to do it. I think that the main reason why I was so tolerant before when I was playing MMOs and all of these things with only 10 FPS sometimes, it was because I haven't been exposed to a lot of high fidelity games at that point in time. And it didn't really help that the more that I played this game, the laggier it seems to get. Like at the very beginning, it was still bearable, but as I play along, as the hours pile up, it becomes laggier and laggier. After a couple of searches, I found that this game in general has just a bunch of performance issues reported by a lot of players. So who knows, maybe that the developer might patch this out or like fix it so that there's a chance that I might have better performances in the future. But overall, in conclusion, the combat of this game is amazing. The dialogue of the characters so far leaves a lot to be desired. The main quest line has a lot of deep downs but has a couple of high ups. And finally, the open world is really fun to explore. This game is a really fun game, even with a potato PC like mine.